This is not a political polemic. What is Hitchens hinting at? Either that patriotic vigilantes with the innate fortitude, end quote, which he elsewhere suggests leftists lack, should deal with his radical opponents, or that they should be rounded up by the FBI. As we noted, Hitchens has already proved himself a fingerman for the Republican right. In his recent articles, Hitchens describes the Taliban and Bin Laden-type movements as Islamic fascism. The term is applied too loosely and without concrete historical analysis. Moreover, his use of fascism as an epithet reeks of insincerity, given that A. Hitchens was prepared to make common cause with American quasi-fascists in the Republican Party during the impeachment scandal, and B. Washington has never broken off relations with a government or party because of its fascistic leanings, whether in Spain under Franco, South Africa, Chile, Central America, or elsewhere. Socialist opposition to Islamic fundamentalism is of a principled character. We do not outsource the task of defeating these reactionary movements to the imperialist bourgeoisie. Moreover, when one supports a policy, one assumes responsibility for its consequences. Hitchens has reached the point where he does not demarcate himself in any fashion from the Bush administration and its drive to war. In regard to Islamic fascists, Hitchens takes up the arguments of his leftist opponents in the following manner. Quote, Did we not aid the grisly Taliban to achieve and hold power? Yes, indeed, we did. Well, does this not double or triple our responsibility to remove them from power? End quote. And further, quote, Very well then, comrades, do not pretend that you wish to make up for America's past crimes in the region. Here is one such crime that can be admitted and undone. The sponsorship of the Taliban could be redeemed by the demolition of its regime and the liberation of its victims. End quote. And finally, quote, This, the present situation in Afghanistan, is another but uniquely toxic version of an old story, whereby former clients like Noriega and Saddam Hussein and Slobodan Milosevic and the Taliban cease to be our monsters and become monstrous in their own right. At such point, a moral, political crisis occurs. Do, quote, our past crimes and sins make it impossible to expiate the offense by the determined action? The logic is impeccable. Since the U.S. ruling elite and its political servants have inflicted misery on the population of Afghanistan and the region by their past reckless, blind, and predatory policies, they should be given blank check to intervene once again, and in a far more overwhelming fashion. Any honest or minimally principled individual who acknowledged the consequences of past policy, as Hitchens does, would surely ask, if the U.S. government and its agencies are chiefly responsible for nurturing these monstrous forces in Afghanistan, why should they be entrusted with the task of resolving the resulting disaster? Hitchens' argument is reactionary, but is also absurd and unconvincing. There is no way out of the crisis in the region on the basis of either welcoming imperialist intervention or supporting any of the political forces, Islamic, military, nationalists, that currently dominate. U.S. policies in Afghanistan have proven disastrous not only for the people of the region. In the final analysis, some 3,000 people in New York and Washington have lost their lives as a result of criminal and irresponsible policies pursued by various American administrations. The September 11th tragedy was the end product of a political process set in motion in the late 70s and early 80s when Washington decided to incite Islamic fanaticism against the former Soviet Union. None of those who initiated that policy, Jimmy Carter, Zbigniew Brzezinski, Ronald Reagan, Henry Kissinger, or their supporters in the media such as CBS Dan Rather, who traveled to Afghanistan and posed before the TV cameras in mujahideen robes, have come forward to assume responsibility. The mind-numbing media barrage, the flag-waving, and the threats against dissenting voices are all aimed at preventing the historical facts from becoming known to the public. There is a continuity between the wars of the 1990s, chiefly the Persian Gulf and the Balkans, and the impending conflict in Central Asia. The U.S., the self-proclaimed sole superpower, is seeking to reorganize the world in line with its geopolitical agenda, establishing its hegemony over oil-rich regions such as the Middle East and the Caspian Basin. A continuity also exists in the conduct of an international layer of former radicals and protesters who, from a combination of opportunism and cynicism, have now thrown in their lot with the various ruling elites. Hitchens is merely one of this breed who has traveled furthest and fastest.